My name is Aaron Hedlund, and I'm Associate Professor of Economics here in the Daniels School at Purdue University. Well, 2024 is going to be a very interesting year because we're coming off of 40-year highs of inflation, and it's really dependent on what the Federal Reserve says. So even just over the past 2 months, the Federal Reserve has communicated that interest rates are likely to decrease, and that's the policy rate that they control. And even though they haven't even cut rates yet, mortgage rates have already fallen by over a percentage point because of those announcements. So right now mortgage rates are in the mid to upper sixes. They were 8%, but just a few years ago they were under 3%. So I think the likelihood is that rates will continue to decline, maybe close to the lower sixes or upper fives. And what that means is it'll make it a little bit easier for people to get into the homeowner market if they're currently not in it, and for some people who got their house recently to refinance. With mortgage rates coming down from their highs, 2024 should be a better time to buy compared to 2022, simply because 8% rates, even versus 6.5% rates, there's a little bit of relief. That being said, house prices are still high, mortgage rates are not anywhere near where they were, but nevertheless, things are moving in a positive direction. With the decline in rates, there will be some people who got their house in the past year to two who will have an opportunity to refinance and save a lot of money. That being said, the vast majority of homeowners still have rates that are far below current rates because they were able to lock those in at much lower rates than present. So the challenge with high interest rates has been that not only is it hard for people to buy a house that they find, it's actually hard to find a house because so many people have rates that are 3%, 3.5%, and therefore have not been wanting to sell because they don't want to get a new house at a higher rate. As rates come down to more reasonable levels, I expect that more homeowners will list their house for sale, and that'll make it a little bit easier for people to find a home too. So given that Federal Reserve policy is probably going to influence very strongly what mortgage rates do, the question is, what is the Fed thinking? And what the Fed is looking at very carefully is inflation. Inflation is down closer to 3% now, which is much better than it had been when it peaked at about 9%. But the Fed has been very clear that they want inflation to get down to 2 and to stay at 2. So they're going to be very carefully watching the economic data to see if we get to that direction. If the data says so, then they'll go ahead and cut rates. If inflation stays at 3% and is difficult to get down, then the Fed may hold pat and the mortgage rates would not fall as much. So right now markets are looking very carefully at 2024, but the question is what happens in the long run? And I think the long run expectation is to probably not ever go back to 3% rates. That's something that's not going to happen again. But I could see us moving back towards 5% mortgage rates, which on a historical basis are still very low. So as long as the economy continues to kind of gradually get to a more normal posture, 2025 should hopefully be a more normal year for the housing market.